Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well and having a great Friday so far. In today's update, we're going to be talking about our severe weather threat over the next few days, and then we'll take a look at what we could expect for the next several days. So I am recording this late Thursday night into early on Friday, so this update may change a little bit, but for now we do have a slight risk across much of the central US today for Friday, and across the mid-south, and as well as one up here into southern New England. But the main threat will be large hail and damaging winds for today on Friday, but there will be a little bit of a tornado risk for today. For Saturday, we have a slight risk of severe weather into portions of the south central U.S. into the mid-south and southeastern U.S. with a large marginal risk around that, and also a marginal risk up here into the north central U.S. Then for Sunday, we already have two areas of level 2 out of 5 slight risk, and that is into portions of the south central U.S. once again, and then out here into the southeastern U.S. once again for Sunday. Looking at our precipitation outlook for this weekend, and so the area that will see the most rain will be in the south central U.S. and into Oklahoma, Arkansas, maybe some areas seeing 2 to 3 inches. Then into the mid-south, kind of widespread, 1 to 2 inches possible throughout this weekend. And then even up here into the northeast and New England, you could see some areas of 2, maybe a little over 2 inches, and I don't think they'll quite reach 3 inches into the northeast, but still widespread 1 to 2 inches throughout the northeast and even Ohio Valley, southern Ohio Valley, that is. And then up here into portions of the north central U.S., you could see maybe an inch or a little over an inch, potentially into Minnesota or Wisconsin. But that'll be the main areas that see the most rain this weekend. Taking a look at our overall setup for this weekend, and so going forward here and going to about midday on Friday, and as you can see, we have our mid-level flow here. This is the 500 millibar level, and so we have some shortwave troughs here kind of moving into the central US, and so you can see them a little bit better if you go to late Friday into early on Saturday, and you can see a little bit of a area of troughing here. That is what your shortwave trough is. It's just that kind of subtle dip in the flow here, and so you have mid-level flow into the 40 and 50 knot range, and that will be plenty enough for severe weather. And as you can see, that flow kind of goes right over the areas, obviously, where our severe weather will be for the next few days. And so continuing that on even further, going into Sunday, you can see that flow shifts kind of eastward, and then you have your other pretty large trough up here into Canada starting to dive down, and that'll actually bring some slightly below average temperatures for just a few days, maybe into the Midwest, north central U.S. for sure, and then even into portions of the Ohio Valley, I think, just a little bit. You'll see those below average temperatures probably early next week into the middle of next week, and then we'll start to see a warming trend as that trough starts to exit, maybe towards the middle or latter half of next week. But after that, we'll have to wait and see what happens, because we are still a decent way out from seeing what we could potentially expect as far as larger systems go for next week. Now looking at our severe weather threat for today on Friday, and so we could see an MCS try to develop very early Friday, today on Friday morning. And so as that MCS moves eastward, it should weaken a little bit as it gets into Arkansas, Missouri, and eastern Oklahoma. And then you could see some more kind of development with that as that shifts eastward. And we'll get to that in just one moment. But continuing that on and going into this evening and tonight, you could see some more isolated development of storms out across West Texas into the panhandle of Texas, panhandle of Oklahoma, and then further up into Colorado as well, in Kansas, and then by late tonight into early on Saturday, you could see another kind of MCS type event develop here. Just a lot of clusters, several clusters of storms, and just a widespread damaging wind event along with hail also possible with that, and a little bit of a tornado risk with that as well. But that whole kind of system should start to weaken potentially Saturday morning and head to the east and eventually make its way into Mississippi and Alabama and Tennessee. And once again, we'll get to those areas in just 1 second. But if we shift to the shift north a little bit for our threat today on Friday, there you can see the morning MCS there. Then if you go further into the day, into the evening and afternoon and evening hours, you could see potentially more development late tonight into early on Saturday, and that will shift eastward and kind of congeal into this, once again, this system right here. And that will once again move to the east after it kind of develops and forms here. So really, this should take away not all, but most of the instability from the areas further north. So those storms should be pretty much cut off from that instability. Any lingering storms, that is, late tonight into early on Saturday across these areas here. So the main event will be that kind of mesoscale convective system here moving to the east as you get into early on Saturday and eventually Saturday evening. Now looking at the Ohio Valley here, and so you could see some development of storms all throughout Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, maybe Missouri by midday. And then in the evening hours, you could see some widespread development here across much of these areas, even into Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, just this area as a whole. And that will continue on. You could definitely see some damaging winds with these storms. Then going into Saturday morning and eventually Saturday afternoon, that leftover energy from that system will kind of redevelop Saturday evening across maybe Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, even into maybe almost South Carolina as well. So we'll have to watch that, but you could see some more development behind that with some kind of isolated to multicellular storms up here into the Ohio Valley, and that'll be once again for Saturday afternoon and evening. Taking a look here at southern New England for today on Friday, and so by the late morning, early afternoon hours, you could start to see some development of storms, and that will kind of develop into a line by this afternoon and evening. And so that will definitely pose a hail and damaging wind threat for these areas as that line moves eastward. But by the late evening and early overnight hours, that should just about be moved out of these areas. And then finally on Sunday, we'll have our severe weather threat across portions of the southeastern U.S., and you'll have some enhanced mid-level flow across these areas, helping to deliver that severe weather threat. And then in the southern plains, you could see potentially another MCS maybe late Sunday night across these areas. So that'll be the area to watch there, potentially into Texas and Oklahoma. And once again, there'll be a wind risk with that area late Sunday night into Monday. So that'll be it for today's update. I appreciate all y'all watching, and I hope y'all have a great weekend.